the Earth's magnetic field is currently weakening 10 times faster than before. However, the greatest concern is the fact that the trajectory and speed of the North Pole shift have recently increased catastrophically. The North Magnetic Pole is moving at an accelerating pace towards the Russian Arctic coast, while the media maintains an information blockade on this issue and continues to attribute global warming solely to human activity. Yet, the truth is beginning to emerge. Intense solar flares, natural disasters, and man-made catastrophes are increasing, and it is becoming increasingly difficult to hide the fact that strange things are happening on our planet. We present to you the research findings of a scientist who has been studying the causes of geomagnetic changes and ice ages since 1971, as an author and member of the Geological Society of America. He has made 60 scientific discoveries and, in parallel, has studied and interpreted the texts of the Torah and the Bible. These texts have shown him twice the cyclicity of our civilization of 12,068 years, thereby confirming his scientific conclusions derived from the analysis of ice cores using the radiocarbon method. Douglas Vogt was not the only one who spoke of a 12,000-year cycle. The cycle of terrible cataclysms, which the Earth now has to go through, occurs on the planet every 12,000 years, and it has been described by various researchers in many scientific works and books. The consequence of core overheating both today and 12,000 years ago was a weakening of the magnetic field and the drifting of magnetic poles. Observe the time intervals during which the magnetic poles have drifted over the past 120,000 years. The interval between them is approximately 12,000 years. It is shocking that at the same time there were severe earthquakes, sharp rises in world sea level, the strongest volcanic eruptions and glaciations. Each time during the drift of magnetic poles, the magnetic field of the Earth became 8 to 10 times weaker, and this led to an increase in the flux of cosmic radiation. Modern science cannot explain why the magnetic drifts coincide with dramatic changes in glaciations. Hartmut G, a German marine geologist and climatologist, while studying the seafloor sediments, lakes, and rivers, identify periods when the climate changes dramatically. First, it becomes warmer by 8 to 10 deg C, and then glaciation begins. Professor Sidney Hemming has confirmed that such fluctuation occurred every 12,000 years. So, a spike in catastrophes was observed 12,000 and 24,000 years ago, and even earlier, 36, 48, 60, and 72,000 years ago. Thus, we can see that the intensification of catastrophes on Earth occurs cyclically every 12,000 years. This implies that the cosmic influence that provides additional energy to our planet's core affects Earth once every 12,000 years. So now we know that every 12,000 years the following events occur on the planet: catastrophic volcanic eruptions, sudden changes in atmospheric temperatures, intensification of winds and hurricanes, change into global sea level and large-scale floods, melting of glaciers followed by abrupt glaciation, shifts in magnetic poles, and weakening of the Earth's magnetic field. It's worth noting that even more severe cataclysms characterize each 24,000-year cycle. The bad news is that today, we're not just living during the time of external cosmic influence. We are living during the 24,000-year cycle, which is even more destructive. We will fully enter this cycle in the end of 2024. This means that the energy affecting the planet's core and the intensity of the destructive cataclysms will increase significantly. But humanity must have a chance to save itself, and this chance exists. A clue was given through the texts of the Holy Scriptures, indicating that in the last times a certain book would be revealed. This book has been revealed, and it contains not only information about how to save oneself, but also information on how to prevent the magnetic pole shift of the Earth and even the mechanism that needs to be built for this purpose by joint efforts of all countries. But we will report on that later. Now to Douglas Vogt's report on the development of the climate on the Sun and on planet Earth, a warning he issued to people until the last days of his life. Unfortunately, he passed away in December 2023 before he could receive the information to interpret his strange dream, in which he was given a clue to salvation. But we will also report on that later.
My name is Douglas Vogt, a research geologist researching the causes of the Ice Age and polar reversal. It took over years to put all the pieces together to come up with an exact number of years, as well as the date of when this geomagnetic reversal is going to happen. It's also known popularly as a polar reversal, but it's technically called a geomagnetic reversal. As you get closer to the reversal, you have a collapsing magnetic field, which is what's happening now. It's exponentially collapsing. So it heats up, and the heat percolates through the lower mantle, the upper mantle, and then finally, what happens, you'll wind up with, these cavities with magma in it start getting bigger and hotter, and you're going to have more and more volcanoes going off, which is the case now. There's over 25 or 30 volcanoes going off now. The worst will be about 1 year to 2 years after sunspot maximum. This is going to be a lot of earthquakes because between the upper mantle and the crust, it's going to be more fluid and liquid. So you can have the moon on one side, the sun on another, maybe enough to release some pressure someplace and let these plates start moving more. You're going to have a lot more earthquakes. Here on the left-hand side, you have a graph of how the magnetic field is collapsing. And it doesn't have to go to 0 nanoteslas when it reverses. The lava, remnant magnetization in the lavas have shown about 15,000, maybe 20,000. So I put the line there at 20,000, but it may be lower, maybe 15,000. On the right-hand side shows you the traditional model of a bar magnet in the center of our Earth. But this is really what's going on right now. It's now going towards Russia around Nova Zembla. That's that little piece of land there where I got the red dot on the right-hand side. And it's moving there. It's past the geographic North Pole, and it's moving about between 45 to about 54 miles per year. So it'll reach around that area when the next Gleisberg cycle is. Now, time-wise, the next Gleisberg cycle will be between September and December 2046. Now, you're going to get a shocker in a few minutes of how that number came up.
Hi, my name is Douglas Vogt from the Die-Hole Foundation. We're a 501c3 science foundation. Its purpose is to find the causes of the Ice Age and polar reversals. I'm going to give you the education you should have gotten in college or universities. If you're an astronomer, astrophysicist, geologist, geophysicist, or one of the other hard sciences, you're going to find out why you were not told the truth, or you were given an alternate explanation for some very common phenomena or observations in both on the Earth as well as in space. Now, this is really important. It's going to make you mad when you find out why they did it and who did it and how they engineered this.
I have a total of 5 physical evidences that this clock cycle exists. I didn't know the exact number of days. I knew these reversals happened roughly every 12,000 years by the physical evidence plus the mythologies. But I relied more on the physical evidence, but the mythology shouldn't ignore either. It's really our ancestors screaming from their graves that something terrible happened to them.
Unfortunately, it's the most coded secret that's in the Torah. No greater coded secret than this. And that's probably why no one ever figured it out before yours truly came around, because you have to come in through the science side of it to understand what the Torah really is, what's really going on, why Abraham bought the cave to begin with. There's too much to learn or know to figure this thing out. I'm going to have a special note for those who are atheists, because I get comments from atheists the minute they see the word God. That's a three-letter word that must be the equivalent of them running fingernails across a blackboard. You know, the way I conceive God is really the operating system of this die hole that we're in. If I've done anything good, I think I've proven that we're in a synchronous system. That's why all these blank periods in space, why the polar reversals happen roughly every 12,000 years, because we're in a synchronous system. And every synchronous system has to have an operating system. So if you see the word God mentioned, in your head, translate it to operating system. That you can relate to. You have to break out of what you were taught and why you think you don't like the idea of a God. Just follow along and try to open up your mind and don't be stubborn about this.
The solar cycle you look at as a resynchronizing frequency. For those who are into computers, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The Gleisberg cycle is a synchronizing frequency. And then finally, they're all geared to the main clock cycle of 12,068 years. Now, what you're seeing here on the lower right of the globe is those curves is showing the direction of where the magnetic pole is going. And it's going towards, like where I said, around Nova Zembla, in that direction, a little bit further east of Nova Zembla, but in that area. That's where it's going. And where it came from is on the backside of it, 180 degrees off. Now, what you're seeing here on the lower right of the globe is those curves is showing the direction of where the magnetic pole is going. And it's going towards, like where I said, around Nova Zembla, in that direction, a little bit further east of Nova Zembla, but in that area. That's where it's going. And where it came from is on the backside of it, 180 degrees off. And what you will see before the reversal. This is where sometimes it actually gets funny. Holding U.S. Treasuries, beware. Uncle Sam can't account for $21 trillion. One thing I could say about the United States, when we do it big. We don't mess around with small stuff at all. This is what we built. These are bunkers. Now, really, they were built starting around Nixon's administration and later, and that's what they spent the money on. One of the things you'll see is at some point our sun is going to expand, and you'll no longer have a perfect eclipse of the sun during a solar eclipse. You're going to get something that's going to look like a white sidewall tire. Sun's output increases. It's going to increase more evaporation to the oceans. Oceans heat up. You'll have more hurricanes and also storms and tornadoes. More evaporation of ocean water, more rain and storms. During this Gleisberg cycle, from 1958 on, the sun is really active and going to increase. It may have its ups and downs. Sometimes it'll have a sunspot cycle that's low. That doesn't mean the sun has gone to sleep. The glaciers are going to be melting. And why? Because the sun's output is increasing. Has nothing to do with mankind, CO2 at all. By the way, another source of CO2 in the sedimentary layers would be also more volcanoes going off. It gives a whole bunch of chemicals, including CO2. Here's a perfect example, 100% correlation between sunspot maximum and the increase in sea level changes. The blue is sea level, the red is the sun. And you can see it's 100% correlation between the two of them. Nixon should have given this project to NASA, NOAA, and USGS, which is U.S. Geological Survey. They should have done this themselves. And separate, they may not have put all the pieces together, but it would have worked a lot better. They wouldn't have wasted $21 trillion in building these cave shelters in the wrong place. That's the problem. But I don't blame the CIA, what they did. They do what a spy agency does but they made a mistake. So now we have 24 years and 7 or so months, 6 months before this reversal happens. We have a bunch of Carrington events. I don't know how much equipment is going to be working, and will we be able to put this thing together in time? I know that Europeans didn't figure this thing out about the sun until much later, about 4 or 5 years after the Americans figured it out. And I still don't know if they realize what's going to happen to Europe during this event happens. In short, you're going to be buried under many, many feet of glacial ice and snow. And nobody made it last time. Nobody lived there for 500, maybe 1,000 years until finally that snow melted. I think within a year, you're going to see a lot of guys, astronomers, saying, this doesn't look like minimum at all. The sun is too active now. It's not going to be what we thought. It's more disinformation. Remember, their job is not to create public panic. And what's happening, you got an increase in energy in the center of the Earth, and the heat percolates through the inner core, the outer core, the mantle, and then finally gets between the crust and that area. And then you wind up having a case where it's just hotter underneath the crust, more liquid, and you then have more volcanoes and you have more earthquakes because the plates are able to move easier. It just takes time to percolate the spike of energy to go through the core all up to when it gets to the crust of the Earth. It takes time. The education system basically institutionalizes stupidity. Does a great job of it, though. And you have to spend thousands to get a degree. And in some subjects, the degree isn't worth the paper it's printed on because much of what they teach you is wrong. A few of the guys, like the biggest ones in physics, been doing it their whole life. They knew something was wrong. But now everybody's in lockstep because they want the grant money because the school administrators insist on it. They want the money. But you can't do anything about it. It has nothing to do with mankind. If there was nobody on the planet, this still would be going on. We're seeing this thing happen on other planets in our solar system. There's nobody there. They're not driving any cars. So, I mean, I'm telling you, you have to fish through the disinformation that's created. Government wants money by taxing you because you're hurting mommy Earth. Fortunately, daddy's son is going to get rid of them real fast. But by then, it's going to be too late for them, too. The bureaucrats have done something incredibly stupid that hurts themselves more than, as well as the rest of us. And I don't know what to say. It's like I woke up in the insane asylum and the patients have taken over. And taken over academia, too. Like I said, they've institutionalized stupidity for the one purpose of gaining money from government, usually, and tuition. What else do I say? I mean, this is the end of days, literally, and I'm basically trying to help people so they save their lives, so somebody can save their lives. I mean, I'm one voice. Dihole Foundation is a nonprofit science foundation. We're doing the best we can, but it's a lot of headwinds, a lot of stupid people, and people who don't want this thing to be known. You have to realize when you do research, when you have this much evidence, at some point you stop and say, I think I've proven it beyond a reasonable doubt. I mean, we're living it. It's happening in front of us. A huge increase in volcanic activity, as well as it's getting warmer and the sun's producing X1 and X2 flares. I mean, I don't remember that. The last sunspot cycle and the one before that doing that just so many years before the event. So you have to wake up and realize something else is going on. Now, I have already covered, in essence, verbally beaten up academia enough. They know they've made a mistake. A number of scientists know that our sun novas, and they don't talk about it. And he said that was the purpose of the space program, which is true, and everything else. Some of them do know it, and they're not going to say a word to you until they retire or die, because it's too scary, and they don't want to call public panic. Even by just saying the sun nova doesn't mean it's going to cause public panic. When you give it a date when it's going to happen, then you're bordering on that, which is, unfortunately, I had to, in order to prove my theory, to wake people up, really trying to wake up some people in the bureaucracy to wake up. They got to do something different. The evidence is all around us, literally. When you stand outside, the ground below your feet, if you dig down enough, is the evidence of what happened. It's as simple as that. It's all around us that these cycles happen. The carbon-14 dating is just a part of it, and you have to be smart enough to look and do the carbon-14 dating of an organic material you find 10, 20, or 30 feet down. Same thing goes for if you find these microtactites, you have to know to try to see if it's radioactive materials in it, elements, and also fission tracks. You have to know to do it, though. You have to look at it like that and realize a lot of the stuff you're reading or seeing is disinformation, also information out of ignorance, because the scientist, in quotes, doesn't know better, or that's what he was taught in school, and he was thoroughly brainwashed also, like most of the cases. I think what people find when they see my stuff, I am brutally honest, and maybe the Prussian in me, that I'm not going to lie. And people say, like you were saying, I'm brave in doing this. I don't see any bravery in it. Why to be brave to tell the truth or what you've discovered? What's the point? If you see something that's wrong or evil, you should say it. Tell people. Nobody's going to do anything to you. Nobody's going to do anything to me. So, you see what I'm getting at? Don't go with the assumption that man is evil, we're doing horrible things to the planet. No, the planet does its own thing. Unfortunately, government is the one who holds the purse strings of what research is being done. And that's just not the United States. It's in Europe, all over the world, except in some countries, I don't think they invest anything in research. In academia, I understand a lot of the scientists' problems. It's a job. They go to work. The school isn't the business of selling a degree. They can't wait to find their students. Guess what? Half or all of what we're teaching is wrong. But you're going to give us $20,000 or $30,000 a semester or a year so we can fill your head with nonsense that we know half of it is wrong. They can't do that. And on top of it, the government uses academia for their own political purposes. He who pays the piper plays the tune. If government is the one who winds up giving the grant money for science research, but it's like the CIA and other government decides who's going to get the research, then I showed it in one of the videos, in one of my videos, comparing the journal Science, was published in the United States, and the publisher of Nature in England, and comparing the fission tracks. The word fission tracks, very few in the United States, 400 or 500 in Europe. And same thing go with solar flares, same thing. You got a controlled science community, and that's the mistake that the agency has made. They fooled themselves is all they've done. And I feel bad for them, and I feel bad for the country and the taxpayers that had to foot the bill for this thing. Will academia and the professors wake up and say, okay, we got a drop dead date of October 2046. Does any of this we're doing matter at all? Kissing up the government to keep it quiet, or should we tell them to go F themselves That's an expletive. I didn't mention it. They can go to hell, and we just tell the truth, what we know. That would be nice if we saw that. But I'm not too sure we're going to see that, because a lot of people's degrees and egos are wrapped up in that sheepskin that's nailed on their wall. That's the degree. You know, that's it. I don't have much hope for them at all, because of man's ego and money. It's amazing how fast they sell their souls. This event affects every living thing on the planet. I don't mean that figuratively. Man, all the animals, everything. And there is only one way to know for sure, and that I'll only share with the DOD. But for your own people, I don't know, telling government officials in countries that don't know anything about this, and they'll take the references from scientists that graduate from their school or someplace like that, and they'll say, no, he's full of it. And they'll discount what I said. Now, it will change definitely if we start having 1 or 2 Carrington events in this sunspot cycle by 2024, around there, year before or after, and definitely 2035. We're going to have multiple Carrington events, and you got to be as dumb as a slug to not know something terrible is about to happen to the sun. By then, it'll be too late, because I don't even know how well plants will grow and what kind of electrical equipment will be working. The grids will be down, and hopefully the mining equipment will still be working.
In May 2024, we saw a huge increase in extreme geomagnetic storms as the sun's activity cycle approaches its solar maximum. This has led to a much greater chance of seeing aurora activity around the globe, and has created some pretty spectacular light displays from China to Europe, Australia, and even some southern states in the US. As for how long these conditions could last for, well, it's possible for this maximum activity to last several years. Aurora have been discovered on other planets in our solar system, including Saturn, Uranus, and Jupiter.
We have a collective magnetic field because it's the end of the cycle. Simple as that. Main clock cycle, unfortunately.
Let's return to the dream of the scientist, which we promised to tell you about. In May 2022, Douglas Vogt mentioned in one of his video lectures a strange dream in which he was told that he must find a certain god's chandelier. The scientist did not realize that God's chandelier was directly related to the biblical prophecy about the revelation of the mystery of the 7 golden lampstands from which incredible technologies can be derived. This discovery occurred at the end of 2019 in Russia, in the Caucasus, in the form of a prophetic book mentioned in the 5th chapter of the Revelation of John as the book with 7 seals, the book with the 7 golden lampstands. Natural catastrophes wiped out a great civilization. In its demise, it left a message that traversed the ages to reach us. The sealed envelope was placed in the totem calendars and holy scriptures. Now is the time to reveal the message. This message, encoded within the Book of Numbers, contains basic tables holding knowledge that transcends the boundaries of modern science. The ancients encoded these tables by transforming them into magic squares.
For thousands of years, the book was locked under 7 seals. I was allowed to open the book, break all 7 seals, and take out its contents. Among the seals, I found 7 lampstands. These are 7 tables that reflect the matrix of the universe. They are not just numbers in a certain order, but a different level that goes beyond the human mind. These tables contain all conceivable and inconceivable secrets of the being and all the technologies that our world needs. During the analyzing process, your consciousness is freed from negative influence, and your faith and soul power are strengthened. By studying these tables, you will realize the necessity of your direct participation in unification against the abyss, into which our world is being led by disunity, indifference, and ignorance, which give power to the inhumane. This book will help you to accomplish a spiritual feat to overcome your indifference and laziness and save yourself and our entire world.
This is the first table. It has been known to the world for several thousand years thanks to a Chinese legend about a tortoise. Although the three main keys of the world have been known for several thousand years, no one has succeeded in solving the mystery of their properties, not even the genius Nikola Tesla. All attempts to unravel the properties of these three keys were based on observing the influence of the keys on the world of numbers, which was a mistake. The properties of all 33-digit number keys and the special system for creating the 7 tables of the universe will only be revealed at the end of a complete development cycle of our civilization. Even the most powerful computer and artificial intelligence would not be able to create even the table from 2-digit numbers without these secrets. There are 11 keys in the Chinese square Lo Shu, but only 6 are enough to recognize the origin of the most important sun signs: the equilateral cross, the hexagon, and the 8-pointed star. For 4,000 years, no one has thought of connecting the number keys to obtain these signs in the Chinese table. This confirms the fact that the revelation of this and all other secrets only happens at a certain point in time. Let's take a look at this wonder. All these 3 sun signs mentioned above, a straight line in 2 directions, and a triangle in 4 directions, and other signs appear not only in the first table, but also in all the other 7 sacred tables. There is only one rule: the figures must be connected by the same digits or keys that lie in different horizontal and vertical rows. The book also reveals the secret of the cube, which also manifests in the tables. The revelation of this secret is connected with the Kaaba in Mecca, to which Muslims from all over the world come every year. Each part of the small cube consists of 9 8-pointed stars, which form the small cycle of everything that exists in the universe. 6 such cycles form the 6 outer sides of the cube. 6 more cycles are inside. This results in a total of 12 cycles, consisting of 108 8-pointed stars. The next 2 magnitudes consist of 27 and 125 cubes respectively. The digital values of these first 3 magnitudes result in the number 198, the number of the Trinity, the Almighty, the universe, the eternity. All subsequent 3 values also show the number 198. The complete secret of the properties of the Kaaba cube will be revealed in time. The least that the cube will give is the free energy of the ether. The book also reveals the principle of the fulcrum mechanism, whose secret is disclosed at the end of the last cycle. It offers people the opportunity to unite and together build a flying object that helps to prevent the inevitable reversal of the magnetic poles and mitigate natural disasters. This principle includes the following. Draw a circle that is divided into 2 equal halves by an axis. 2 rods are attached to the center of the axis with a load at each end. Both rods rotate around the axis in opposite directions to each other. Imagine how the rods move towards each other. The rotation only takes place in the upper half of the circle. As long as the loads of the rods move in this part of the circle, the entire mechanism has a forward thrust. As soon as the loads approach the opposite ends of the axis, the entire mechanism rotates 180 degrees. This does not affect the movement of the rods, so they continue to rotate. As a result, both loads only ever move on 1/2 of the circle, although they make full rotations around the axis. This means that the thrust force will always go in a certain direction. Through the joint efforts of all countries, a flying object with a powerful engine can be constructed. The flying object can remain in place without relying on the external environment, ground, water, air. The Earth moves away from the flying object, rather than the flying object moves away from the Earth. This makes it possible to regulate the position of the Earth in the direction of the Earth, in the direction of the magnetic field shift, and to catch up with it, to bring the planet into a new position in time. In this case, no pole shift of the Earth will occur. The teaching cycle for all people on Earth has already ended. For 4.5 years, the time of the final test for every soul and for the entire civilization has begun. The book has been revealed to humanity as a help so that they can unite to free their world from the clutches of a group of inhumans, leading the world into the abyss, thereby saving their world from impending catastrophe. This is the exam for each person and for the entire civilization in the last days, at the end of the complete cycle. The cycle does not necessarily have to end in a catastrophe. Through the Holy Scriptures, humanity has been given warnings, but it's not a predetermined scenario. The development of events depends on the choices and actions of the majority. With the spread of information, with the awakening of people's consciousness to real actions and unity, humanity has the chance to move into the next creative cycle, in which the 7 lampstands will reveal their secrets and previously unknown technologies. It's now necessary to inform people about what is happening, and the only chance for salvation through unity in action. Share this information with others. Reach out to the Ministry of Defense of your country, to politicians, scientists, journalists, bloggers, and public figures, so that they spread this information and take appropriate measures. It has already been translated into many languages of the world, and thanks to the efforts of a small group of people, this information is now being spread worldwide in different languages. It's time to wake up and start to act before it's too late. The world does not have much time left.